Hello, everyone. Whether you're looking at this on the evening of June 26, 2024, or whether you're capturing this later as a video, I say, and our Charms board says, thank you so very, very much for spending some time with us this month during the month of June for Men's Health Month. As I've stated from the beginning, we love our men. We need our men here with us. I mean, this world won't go round if it's just us women out here toddling along. So we need our men, and we need to hear what bothers them or what health challenges they have, or really, basically, what do they want us to know about what's going on with them, so that we can be able to help them. We can be able to sit with them and say, hey, we're here for you. And so, if you allow me just a few more moments, what we're waiting for is for event. What we're waiting for is for LinkedIn to come into play. So, give me just a second, and we'll go ahead and we'll get started with tonight's event. And so I see that we are on LinkedIn as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say once again, thank you, one, and thank you all for spending the month of June with us. Once again, whether you were watching live or recorded, we appreciate you. The men appreciate you. I've gotten comments from men that have said, Sandra, thank you so much for doing this. We needed it. You're right on time with this. And so I'm happy to do what I can to uplift not just social, not just based on race, but based on sexual, identities as well, male and female. I'm happy to make sure that both sides get the link in to what's going on in this world with when it comes to health equity. So once again, tonight I bring you a senior subject matter expert. This senior subject matter expert is so appreciated by me because when I started the nonprofit Charms, I asked him, I need some help. Would you please mind being on our board? He graciously accepted and said, sure, Sandra, whatever you ask me, I'm going to do, right? I don't know. I don't know why people say that, but he was like, whatever you ask me, I will do. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself. But before I do, I want to let him know that from my heart, as well as my husband's heart, who is my co-partner in this, as well as the rest of the Charms board members, we so appreciate you. We appreciate you joining our calls. We appreciate you giving us feedback. It's so very important for us, and it's so very important for everyone to know that you have a voice. Men have a voice on our board, and they're actually there, and they're actually listening and taking hold of what's going on. Now, I will say this: as you're watching, not sure where you're watching from, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you put comments in and we don't get to them, please know that I will be looking afterwards at what comments come in. And I will be making sure that either I answer those comments, or we have our illustrious guest answer those comments. One other final thing, right? He's gonna tell you about himself, but we're gonna get into the snooze or lose, and you'll find out what that snooze or lose is all about when we start talking about the topic for this evening. So L Brad, and I know you say, Sandra, stop calling me L Brad, just call me Brad. So Brad,
You can call me. A lot of people call me Mr. Bradley too, especially the ones who don't know me.
so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you and let you tell us who you are and what makes you tick.
Well, let me start out by saying that I could have easily refused your invitation to join Chalms. I didn't have to, but we're both in the same sort of business of helping people, and there's a lot of people that talk the talk, but I like to hang with the people that walk the walk as well. So that's why I jumped on board. This organization is great. It's a boots on the ground organization. I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy to, I guess, share my story. So how far back should I be going here? Do you want?
You know what? Today, you're the educator. You are the educator. I am a patient. I'm learning just like everybody else, right? So when I'm going to be 10, I'm learning just like everybody else. This floor is yours to do, to say what you want to say. So you tell us what you want us to, what do you want us to know?
Well, I want everybody to know that I'm the president of a nonprofit organization called Greater National Advocates. It's kind of how you and I connected. What Greater National Advocates is a promotional tool to wake up the nation about the life-saving benefits of independent patient advocates. And for those who don't know, independent patient advocates are advocates who work directly for patients using all the knowledge and experience that they've gained, oftentimes working in hospitals, working within healthcare themselves. They made a conscious decision after working on the inside to leave that profession and go and work directly for patients and families. I think it's very, very important, and it's a very, very effective way to improve health and improve outcomes and make sure that patients are heard. So I started an organization, and I think it was 2018, and I have um, our mission is to promote patient advocacy, make sure everybody knows what independent patient advocacy is. And we have a huge, massive directory of independent patient advocates all over the United States. I believe we're the largest independent patient advocacy directory. We're always looking for more. Business, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, is booming. Patients and loved ones are calling on a regular basis. And as I told you, we are a public awareness organization that connects patients and families with the help they need. When they're in the midst of a healthcare situation that they just can't handle on their own, or they shouldn't be handling on their own. So the mission was to spread the word, but I got to level with you. We've done a real good job at spreading the word. We've pivoted a little bit to start filling in the gaps in the country where we need more advocates, because we do not want the demand for independent patient advocates to exceed the availability. This is a relatively new field. We're putting the pedal to the metal. We're gaining a lot of traction, a lot of awareness. There are a lot of organizations that are working together to make that happen. I would say, in fact, there's an entire coalition of organizations that are working together to make that happen. If anybody is interested in learning more about the big picture of what's going on, I'd send you straight over to chcaw.org. That's chicago.org, and that is the coalition of healthcare. It's a coalition of healthcare advocacy organizations. And if anybody is interested in learning more about independent patient advocacy and possibly joining the profession, helping people, we've got a conference coming up in September, first week in September, right after Labor Day in Vegas. I go to healthadvocatesummit.org or .com, or just Google Healthcare Advocate Summit. You can find out everything you need. It's also on the Chicago website as well. So thank you for that. That's my story. I can go deeper and tell you that, I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to start a nonprofit patient advocacy foundation and list advocates. No, I did it because why most people do it, why most people wake up all of a sudden. It's when it happens to you. So the backstory is that I am a practicing attorney here in Chicago. I've been a litigation lawyer for a little more than 30 years, I think. 35, I don't even know. But a lot of my practice is and was medical related. So I wasn't an uneducated patient, and I certainly had the ability to, speak up for myself, or at least I thought. But I went into the hospital at the wrong time when there was just a lot of substitute staff. I had a headache that progressed to septic, full-blown sepsis. I had an underlying infection called bacterial meningitis. The bottom line is everybody in the emergency room appeared to work very, very hard, uh, not to give me any care whatsoever, not to follow protocols, not to communicate with each other. So I went into the hospital with a headache at the age of 37. I left the hospital about 6 months later, missing all four of my limbs. And I came to the realization that if I would have had somebody there speaking up for me, I think my outcome would have been a lot different. So that's what Greater National Advocates is all about. And that's kind of what, that's how you and I have started to cross paths. So,
And I do want to say something before we get into the topic for this evening. I do want to say something, right? Say what you might about bad situations and horrible situations and things that happen to people. There are often a lot of good things that happen out of bad traumatic experiences, right? I mean, like you said, had you not have been hurt, maybe we would not have met, or we would have met, but maybe we would have met under different circumstances. And you said another thing which touches me so very, very dearly is no patient should be going to the hospital, going to the doctor's office, especially if there's a chance that, if you're just going for a routine physical, you pretty much okay. But if you're going because there's something going on, some signs, some symptoms that you're experiencing, it's best to have someone with you, because a lot of times your mind is not thinking, right? And there are often times when you mentioned your age, I'm like, that's what triggered it, right? Okay, well, he's only 37. He don't know what he's doing. We could do whatever we want to do. And that's so unfair to both the clinical team as well as that young patient that's going in there because they're hurt and they need help. But we gotta stress the point that no patient should be going into a facility on their own,
and,
especially around your third point, which brings up the holidays. A lot of times during the holidays, there are not the doctors, true doctors that are on staff at these hospitals are on vacation. They have the right to vacation. They've worked. They have the right to vacation, right? But what goes on when you're sick and you have to go to the emergency room, and there's so many things that play into that, which is that why I say that there are certainly, I mean, no patient should ever go into the hospital or go to a medical center by themselves. But there are certainly definitive times when you, as a patient, whoever's listening to this, or you have loved ones, whoever it is, take someone with you no matter what, because there are certain criteria that fall into, it's a good chance that you're going to come out with something that you didn't go in there with. I mean, I'm being really honest. It just
yeah,
really is. And that's what happened with you. But I'm thankful to you that you didn't give up. That you was like, oh heck no, you got the wrong person. You don't know who I am. You went
yeah.
after,
And
and
do
you
I
was
look?
like, let me do this where I could get other people to actually, who probably, a lot of us have actually already been doing the work, right? We've been doing it for years and years and years. We just never connected the two and said, hey, there is something that we can actually do. And I
Hey,
have,
before we go on, do me a favor, will you?
okay.
That banner running across that says gna.org,
Mm-hmm.
it's gnanow.org.
Okay. So let me change that.
You hear that
Um,
buzzing, that alarm in the background there?
mm-hmm.
That's somebody that needs help.
Okay, are you okay with continuing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. GNAnow.org. Okay, and I have Dr. Kafalat that actually is responding. She says she agrees. Everyone needs an advocate, even nurses. Nurses, doctors, lawyers. I mean, we all need them, and we all need to make sure that we have someone with us that can actually speak on our behalf. And you're right, even nurses. Everyone needs someone. It's not just, one person, but everyone does need someone. So thank you, Dr. Kafalat, for that response. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to go into our topic for this evening, which is snooze or lose when we're talking about sleep apnea. So, if you can give us a background about when did you first notice symptoms of sleep apnea?
We used to call it snoring. And that's kind of what I thought it was. My dad, growing up, we'd all be sitting, hanging around in the family room, and he worked hard. He got up early, stayed up late, and every once in a while he would fall asleep on the couch, and we would hear it. We'd all, it was, like this, we just thought it was snoring. Well, he was never diagnosed with it. Nobody knew what it was, and but I started to, I snored. I've snored my whole life, but I think I started to notice it when my wife started complaining about the snoring. Mentioned it to the doctor. I had to go to a facility and have a sleep study where they hooked you up to all these machines and everything. And I came out of that place and I was told that, yeah, you got sleep apnea and it's pretty bad. It's obstructive sleep apnea, and you stop breathing in the middle of the night a lot for extended periods of time. Now, I didn't know it because you don't really wake up. I slept through it, but that's how I found out about it, and I found out how you know physiologically what it does to the body, and all of the bad things that can go along with it if it's not treated appropriately.
You're so very right, and I'm thankful to your wife. Tell her I said thank you for
Well,
making you go to the doctor. She shouldn't have had to force you, the president of GNA, to go to the doctor when you started noticing something wasn't
no,
right.
no, no, she should have, because this goes back to the whole point. When it's you freeze. I don't care who I am. Yeah, I'm the president at GNA, but that just makes when I get into the room with the doctor, I freeze like everybody else, and I leave uh, kicking myself for forgetting to ask this question, and so no, that's where I'm
And
going to correct you.
but this is the thing, Brad. After you're the third gentleman that I've had on Men's Health Month, and I'm hearing this resounding, and I even say it to my husband sometimes. I hear this resounding. I'm a man. I could toughen up. I could take it. I don't need a doctor, right? I mean, this tough man image that you guys have, but it's just really funny that it's you're owning up to it and you're saying, hey, I don't care who I am. When I get to the doctor's office, I freeze. I don't say anything. I'm just really quiet, right? And because we need for patients to understand that that's not what you want to do when you start
Mhm.
noticing symptoms. We can go with you to the doctor's office. Your significant other can go with you to the doctor's office, but we're not in your body. I can't, talk for you because I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what it means like to have sleep apnea because I don't have sleep apnea. So I wouldn't be able to say, hey, I think this, that, or other. And like you said, you really don't notice it. My husband also has sleep apnea. And for a very long time, I would tell him, you sound like you're waking up the dead. That's how loud he slept until he and his mom had um, sleep apnea. But this is a point that I'm trying to make, and then I'll go on to question number two. This is a point I'm trying to make. We got to speak up. We can't go to the doctor's office and expect for the doctor to read our minds. And then when the doctor doesn't read our mind or they read our minds the wrong way, we get mad because, well, they should have known. Well, they can't know because they're not you. So they can't really know what's going on unless you speak up and unless you talk to them and tell them that. And this doesn't just mean for the men. Ladies, we do the same thing. Sometimes we go somewhere and we don't say anything until we come home, and then we start feeling a certain way, and then we're like, I should have told them this, or I should have told them that. Write it down and make it clear that these are the symptoms you're having, because now that medicine has become it's become a business instead of a treatment, a place that patients go where they could get service, is now a business, and it's been a business for quite some time now. Doctors don't have a whole lot of time to spend with you trying to figure out what's going on, which is why you need to either have a binder or a journal or something that you can readily open and say, here, let me read this, right? This is what I was feeling. The other thing is that I wanted to bring up is when you said your dad. Right now, we are in the crux in this country of forgetting one thing that we shouldn't be forgetting, and that is the importance of our family history. Sleep apnea, from what I was reading, from the data that I was reading in reference to sleep apnea is a genetic condition. So for those of us that have sleep apnea, and we want to have kids later, or we already have children, we need to actually have a place where we're actually keeping that information, so that when they come of age, they'll know what they need to tell the doctors about, right? They don't know. Well, this wasn't just snoring, this was what this had. Now, back then, when our parents were growing up, or when they were growing, they didn't go to the doctor. A lot of them didn't go to the doctor, right? The doctor was, I ain't going there. I'll go when I feel like it, right? It was pushed off. And so some things we didn't know about, back then. And I say back then in the 50s and 60s, we didn't really know about it back then because we didn't put time and invest time in. But seriously, for everyone that's looking at this or listening to this video, at whatever point it is, start making sure that you're documenting what is in your family, the health history of your family. If you don't know the health history of your family, go a step over, right? And start looking at the culture you come from. Because very often the culture you come from can tell you what diagnosis, what medical conditions you may be prone to. So start having those conversations with your doctors. Hey, I'm, African American. Hypertension is, rampant in our community. Can you check me for this to see when I, start experiencing symptoms? So just because you don't know your biological mother or father does not mean that you can't get a hold of what your health should be or could be in the near future. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but it's very, very important that I continue to say this. Your family history. Get to know your family history. Unlock that key, take that key and unlock it. And take a deep breath, because you never know what's going to show up. But unlock it and start dealing with it so that you can deal with it as adults. And if you have children, when they come of age, they can deal with it as well. So now we're on to number 2. Now, you just said that you have obstructive sleep apnea, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because in doing the research, I saw that there was central sleep apnea, complex sleep apnea. So if you think you may have sleep apnea, ask your doctor what kind you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's 3 or 4 different types of sleep apnea, and it's important for you to know what type of sleep apnea that you have, so that you can have it addressed correctly. I mean, that's like somebody saying, well, I got a headache. Okay, well, what kind of headache you have? Because you're going to take certain things to certain things. So let help by actually asking them. And if they don't tell you, say, some doctors just say, oh, you got sleep apnea. Next thing out your mouth should be, what kind?
Mm.
Right? You want to know what kind, right?
How
How
bad?
how can we deal with this kind that I have, right? So that I
Mm-hmm.
can get the best help possible. My next question is, what impact has sleep apnea had on your daily life and your overall health?
Oh, I mean, that's hard to say. You don't know. I mean, if sleep apnea goes untreated, it's not like it kills you immediately. What it does is it kind of shortens your lifespan and makes you more susceptible to things like, heart attack and stroke. So, I think I was fortunate enough to, catch it when I did, from a lifestyle standpoint, because of the amputations. It was difficult for me to navigate that CPAP machine for a while, but now they have, something you could just like put in your mouth, and it seems to work. So
Now, since you've had it and since you've been treating, because you found a method of a DME, durable medical equipment product that helps you with the sleep apnea, so you don't have to wear the mask all night, right? It has your wife noticed any difference? I
oh
mean, has
yeah,
she made any
yeah, and I have,
comments?
yeah, and I have too, to be honest. I mean, it's been a while, but you just, everybody always says, oh, get a good night's sleep. Well, I think there's a lot of people out there that probably don't even know what that is anymore. You know what I mean? So I think the big difference is you get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I mean, and that once again was why I chose the title of this room to be snooze or lose. If you're
Yeah,
not snoozing and you're not getting your sleep, then you're losing a lot of your life expectancy because you're not sleeping and it's wearing you down. So you're so true with that. And how has sleep apnea affected your quality of sleep and your energy levels?
Um, well, I don't know. I got here about 12 hours ago and I'm still going strong. So, you know, it makes a difference. Like I said, you don't even notice it. You don't even realize that maybe you're tired, that you don't have the energy until you get that good night's sleep. Snooze or lose. So there's a lot of people losing out there because they ain't snoozing, and they don't know what they're missing. So
Right, and they're not snoozing because they're not taking the time to go to the doctor to see
yeah,
what
it's
what's
not
going
as
on. And
difficult.
sometimes it's not sleep apnea. Sometimes it's just you're tired and you ran down and you need the doctor to give you some pep or give you a supplement that might help you with your energy level. But you won't know if you don't go to the doctor to see what exactly is causing you to not be correct. And so prior to you being told that you had sleep apnea, had what was your energy level? Like you said, now you've been there 12 hours and you're still going strong. So prior to you being diagnosed with sleep apnea, about how long was it before you just got like, what, I can't do this. I need to go to bed. I need to lay down. I'm just not functioning correctly. How long was it?
That's the thing. I mean, I could say that for me, I would get tired and stuff, but it wasn't like that. It was just that I just felt a boost of energy once I started getting the appropriate treatment. So for me, I didn't know that I had it. I didn't know how bad it was. Um, but I noticed a difference uh, immediately, after the durable medical equipment that you referred to.
Now, what other people say to you, what's wrong? Like look at you and see that you weren't that same old peppy because you're very peppy. You have a which is another reason why we clicked because you're just as peppy as I am, right? Like you are a ball, you bring about so much enthusiasm wherever you go and when you talk. That enthusiasm comes through for you. So, was there ever anyone that said to you, you know what, you look like you're tired? What's going on?
No, no more than like anybody would say if I stayed up all night or went out a little too hard on a weekend or something. So no, it wasn't anything like I said that was noticeable. It wasn't even really on my radar. And if I hadn't known by way of my wife that I was snoring like I was, you know, I it's hard for me to explain. That's why it's such a subtle little thing. You don't realize it. Sleep apnea is, it's not like getting chest pains or anything like that. You're sleeping. You don't know that you got sleep apnea. And you know, I didn't feel extraordinarily tired. All I could say is I felt less tired and more energized afterwards. So I feel like I probably just got used to it and never really noticed what not having that good night's sleep was doing.
Now, I do have a question for you. And this ties into the next question that I'm going to ask you, which is this. As far as your doctor for sleep apnea, and this has a lot to do with health literacy, with your doctor with that you went to for sleep apnea. Did you go to a specialist who told you that this is what you have, or did you just stop? Your primary care doctor said, well, you got sleep apnea. And so you just stopped and said, okay, well, what's next? Is that what occurred?
My my primary care physician is the one that recommended the sleep study.
Okay,
Yeah.
so once he diagnosed you and said that, well, he didn't diagnose you.
He didn't
Right,
diagnose. He
right.
sent me there, got the results. They got the results. He got the results. He told me the results, and then it was okay. Next steps.
Okay, so now as far as treatment for, and Carolyn Coleman is saying hello, everyone. Hello, Carolyn. As far as the treatment goes, as far as the sleep apnea, once you did the test, you did the study, are you following with your primary care doctor, or are you following with a specialist that is actually trained on the different types of sleep apnea and trained best on how to treat those with sleep apnea?
I'm still under just the care of my primary for this. I don't know that I would meet any criteria really to be under the care of um, a sleep doctor for an extended period of time. I rely on, self-reporting the difference in how I feel. I report to my doctor what my wife says if I'm snoring. If I know I got a doctor appointment coming up, you know, hey, pay attention. Am I snoring? And I'm not really. And then the other thing is that I feel fortunate in that the the vital signs and everything that sleep apnea could have an impact on. For example, blood pressure, heart rate, all of those things. My levels are good, so I'm not seeing any physiological symptoms or impact of it. I feel good, and so I'm just following up with my
Primary
primary
doctor.
care. Yeah.
Okay. And I do want to actually ask you also. So, other than you actually doing the mouth breathing, the Cologuard treatment, do you do any other treatments, any other therapies? Has any dietary changes been been recommended for you?
Well, I mean, weight is a big factor, and you mentioned genetics. Even if it doesn't run in the family, if you are overweight, your chances of having some form of sleep apnea are increased. But I made, a conscious decision over the last couple of years to try and watch what I'm eating because it does have an impact, and I feel like I'm in a decent place right now, fairly. I mean, everybody can probably drop another 10 or 15, but you know, so in terms of lifestyle, no, I didn't change my diet or anything. I just started eating what I knew was better and stopped eating as much of what I knew was bad.
Okay. So that was a conscientious effort on your part. Like, look, okay, I got this. I'm gonna have to deal with this for a while. Um, once you treated, it's like, okay, I'm going to deal with this for a while. What can I do? Right? All
Right.
patients should be looking at it. What can I do as a patient to actually go ahead and make it better? Right? Make the consequences of this disease, whatever disease condition it is, make it better. And so you said, let me do my part by eating more healthier than what I would normally eat. Now, my next question is this. So, you have sleep apnea. You've been to the doctor a couple of times. You are, once again, the founder of GNA, which is Patient Advocate Foundation. That was not the Patient Advocate Foundation. And so, let me go back because we do have a Patient Advocate Foundation, but you have a Patient Advocacy Directory. And so, how has your experience been in actually, from a patient standpoint, working with your doctor, working with the sleep study team, working with other people? Like, have you actually had an opportunity to reach out to anyone and say, I was diagnosed with this? What do you recommend? Have you had any interactions like that
with other.
with other doctors? You said you see your primary care doctor, but
Right.
the conversation. So let's start with your doctor. Your primary care doctor is the one that's overseeing your care that you're receiving for the sleep apnea. That primary care doctor, is your communication better? Is it not? So is it?
I have a great
It's okay.
look.
It really didn't change much.
I have a great primary care physician. It's a crazy story, but he was a resident in the hospital while I was in the coma. So he knows everything about what's happened
Hmm.
to me. He understands my body, and I followed him as a primary care physician as he started his practice. And
Okay,
so,
so
yeah,
so
I
you're
mean,
right.
very lucky to be able to have somebody like that. That, like, you know, he had a role while he was before he was a full doctor. In saving my life and seeing what goes into it. So, we had this. I'm assuming, at least I feel it. I presume he does the same way. That it was a impactful way to meet your patient, and it stuck with us, and therefore, we just have a good, solid relationship.
And you're so right when you say that. A lot of people do not have good doctor patient relationships, right? And they suffer from it. The patient actually suffers from, having to set up with a primary care team or with a medical team, period, where the interaction between the patient and the doctor is not good. You always want to have, and I'm with you, Brett. My primary care doctor that I have right now, she's a go getter. Like, she knows, what I go through. She knows the challenges that I've had. And so she is all on board with, let's get Sandra better. Let's do what Sandra needs to do. So it moves that conversation of patient centered care out of just a word, and it puts the
Yep.
onus on the action of the patient centered care, which is what many patients need. They don't need to have have just a one sided affair with the doctor. They need to have a rounded affair with the doctor. So hearing that you have that with your doctor and knowing that you have a health challenge and that you have that, that's great news, because that's what we want to get to, right? That's
Yep.
the push behind the C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation. The mission is to get more patients to be engaged in their healthcare, to speak
Yep.
up when they go to the doctor's office. They see something wrong, say something. See something, say something. And just be actually really into making sure that they actually are getting good, solid healthcare, not just healthcare. You want
Mm.
good, solid healthcare that leads to the best health outcomes. So we talked about your relationship with your doctor. Have you come across anyone, as far as a patient that also has sleep apnea, that might be experiencing challenges? And if so, have you been able to, like, talk to them and say, hey, why don't you try this? Or just making them, encouraging them to keep going.
My daughter has sleep apnea, and she's on a CPAP machine right now herself.
Okay.
Uh, so, you don't just. It's hard. Look, it's a
Right.
lot easier for me to, like, connect or hook up, so to speak, with other amputees, because we're spottable. But you don't go up to somebody on the street and say, "Hey, you got sleep apnea. You should go to
Right.
sleep." So
No, but
it's
a lot of times what happens is that when you go to the doctor's office, conversations start, right? And so, they might mention to you, I got sleep apnea. I'm doing, I heard you, we're going through the same thing. Things
Yeah.
like that do happen and do occur. And if they don't with sleep apnea, I highly recommend that a support group for sleep apnea patients is started. And that's because sleep apnea patients need just as much help and assistance with dealing with the condition than anyone else dealing with any other kind of condition. It's not so much, oh, sleep apnea is so bad. It's not like that, but it is a health condition. And all health conditions, all health disease conditions, there really needs to be a support group for people who are dealing with it when they get down or they feel like, oh, I can't keep going, or this is too much, or, why do I have to do this? When they're not understanding it, they can actually turn to someone else and ask for assistance, or ask and say, hey, how are you feeling? Did you experience this? Just to actually, touch bases and have a connected partner with them is what I'm looking for, to make sure that we do in fact have a support group out there for sleep apnea patients. My next question is this. And so, well, actually, I'm not finished with this question because I'm going to go back to you with the independent patient advocates. So, in independent patient advocates, we have them in all genres, right? A pulmonologist, which would be your lung doctor, which would be a lot of times the provider, the specialist that you would see if your sleep apnea got out of control and then, you reached a level 4 or whatever, and it was really difficult and it wasn't controllable. You'll see a pulmonologist for your lungs. They might send you to, and it really depends on what other health conditions you're dealing with that you have sleep apnea, because a lot of times sleep apnea is tied to another health condition. We haven't studied it enough to do enough digging deep to see what other conditions could be related or caused by sleep apnea, or vice versa. So I don't have that data on me, but I just, want everyone to know that when it comes to independent advocates, we got all kinds. So if you had an independent advocate, do you know of any independent advocates that are on a GNA website that, are in pulmonology or, lung, anything like that?
Well, let's just say that the beautiful thing about the GNA Now website is the fact that you can search it by a problem or condition to find an advocate that has experience working with patients with that condition. So while I can't think of anybody offhand, I would say it is easy to search. You could just search by sleep apnea or sleep, and I'm sure somebody will pop up. Or
And for those advocates that are listening, for those independent, for all advocates, right? Because there might be some else advocates, our cohorts are the advocates that work for facilities. There may be some advocates that work or facility based, are not entrepreneurs and don't have their own businesses, they work for someone. If your hospital that you're working at has a sleep study center, put it in my comments so that as people are looking at this and they're seeing it, they actually have some resource that they can turn to. We're in Chicago, but the social media platforms that we're on are all over the country, actually all over the world. So if you have a resource that that would be useful for a patient that has recently been diagnosed with sleep apnea or is living with sleep apnea, right? Put the resource out there so that the person can actually so that we can actually have a directory or have a resource for someone that says, hey, I was just recently diagnosed with sleep apnea. I don't know who to go to. I don't know who to turn to. So that they have some place. They got some names or something. If you are a independent advocate and you're in the sleep study field, please put your information in the comments section of today's video so that that information could be transferred over to someone that actually needs to be with a sleep apnea advocate, right? All sleep apneas there's 3 or 4 different kinds. What medicines should they be on? Where's the resources for the durable medical equipment? Let's feed back into community what resources we have to help them so that they receive the help that they need. Too often patients sit at home because they don't know where to go, right? They don't know, oh, you could deal with sleep apnea. It's controllable. If you don't control it, it's going to control you. Once again, snooze or lose. If you do not control it, it is going to control you. Then that becomes a problem because it becomes uncontrollable. So if you're diagnosed with it and you're like, well, I don't really know what it is, or you diagnosed with it and it's harmful to you, right? Talk to somebody. Let somebody know. Say something. Don't be afraid, say something, because as I often say, look, there are too many people out here, right, that are reading Dr. Google. Dr. Google is good if you know who's putting the information on Dr. Google. But Dr. Google at times has a tendency to turn you around 121 different ways or more to thinking that you're going to die from whatever diagnosis you're given, right? We got to stop that. We have to
Yeah,
stop that. When you use Dr. Google, look to see who put the information in Dr. Google. Because when it comes down to sleep apnea, yes, you're going to be uncomfortable. Yes, there's some changes in your life that you have to do, right? But if you get the wrong information, what you going to do then? All right. What are you going to do then? And so we've actually already discussed your lifestyle changes because you just stated that you really haven't made any lifestyle changes, right? Other than you eating what you're supposed to be eating, which you should have been eating already.
exactly.
Right? So that, that's good. Like I stated earlier, that is very, very good to know that you, in fact, do have, you know, understand that you got a role in playing this as well. It's not just about what the doctor say. You can't say you got a bad doctor when you're going home and you're eating 50 tons of fat, ice cream, milk. You're putting all this stuff in your system that you really shouldn't have in your system. It's not on the doctor, then it's on you. And so we can't keep complaining about what's happening and not willing to do what we need to do to stop it from happening. And then my last question to you is this: what advice would you give to others who may be living with sleep apnea or suspect they may have? Well, I told you my last question, but I am going to actually ask you another question when we're done with this question. What advice would you give to others who may have sleep apnea, or I'm not even going to say may have it. Say they were just recently diagnosed with sleep apnea, and their mind is running 100 or down 101 different tracks because they really don't understand what sleep apnea is. What advice would you give them?
I'd tell them take a deep breath. People have been snoring and have probably had sleep apnea for thousands and thousands of years. But as medicine progressed, we just really started putting a name on it probably 30 years ago, I would say. I remember when sleep medicine, first started, coming out, and I think a lot of the early studies were done around infants and stuff, and trying to make sure babies were sleeping at the right times and for as long as they could. But I'm going off track. The advice would be is that there's a simple fix, and it doesn't. You don't have to have surgery. You don't really have to take medicine. If you're overweight, you should be trying to eat as best you could and getting as much exercise as you can anyway. And if this diagnosis is the thing that forces you or the impetus to make you actually take those steps, then so be it. But give it a shot. Like I said, the CPAP machines are, you'll notice an immediate difference and you won't want to give it up. So, I mean, I think finding out about it, unlike finding out about a lot of things, well, I mean, it's always good to know, but it's a good thing because there are options, non-invasive, simple, quick fix, so to speak, in relation to other medical conditions that are not going to infringe on your life that much and only improve it. So follow your doctor's instructions, speak up, and don't snooze or you'll lose.
Yeah, you are so right about that. You are most definitely, like I said, you're most definitely right about that. And that's something that we have to keep in mind when we talk about different ailments and we talk about different things, is the fact that there's help out there. And we do have Jay Palmer who actually is replying, and she's saying sleep apnea is such a great topic. I used to think people with it were in danger. And Jay, they are, if they don't take care of it, if they don't
Mhm.
go and get the proper help. So often we talk about being proactive. I mean, sometimes we say proactive so much till we sound like we are a parrot. Right? Because we're always pushing
Yeah,
proactive. It's to keep people from becoming reactive, or people keep people from becoming restrictive when they're dealing with these conditions, right? What turns out small and minor turns out, to be overblown a lot of times by the time we really get the chance to actually address it and put the information out there, or go see a doctor about it. And that's why it was important for me this month to take the time to honor our men, to take the time to hear from them. What kind of conditions are you guys dealing with? Like, what are some of the medical challenges that you have? We've heard about the diet. We've actually heard about the mental health issues. We've heard about our male grown, a lot of our young boys growing up without father figures and how that father figure is important. We've listened to, so many things this month coming from men, the diabetes aspect, the eating well aspect, the I'm a man and I ain't letting nothing stop me. So they don't go to the doctor, they don't take that time, which is why we as women, we gotta push it. I mean, they've been here for us the whole time. As we look back over the months, we had a month of women's history. We've had a month of women's health. We've had all these months about women. And I'm a woman, so I mean, I love it because we get the attention that we need. But then when it comes to June and to men's health, well, I mean, the crickets start coming out,
yeah,
right? Like, well, that's why we don't say nothing, because nobody wants to listen to us. And that's so not true. So we've got to band around them and say, hey, guys, we're here to help you. Talk to us. Let us know what you need. What do you need from us to pour into you in order for you to continue to go? Because we need you. We need men for our little boys and our teenagers to look up to as role models. Well, if they're all sick, or they all walking around and not saying nothing because they think nobody wants to hear them, then what happens to our future? Where is our future when it comes down to men? Where's our future? So it was important for me this month to actually bring some of those men out that I knew that were dealing with things, clinical trials, men in clinical trials, men in, we have sleep apnea. And actually, when I asked Brad to be on, and he said he would be on, I was asking him to do it, to actually talk about GNA and actually talk about something that's close to his heart, which is the GNA, the independent advocates that his directory supports, letting people know that we're here for you guys. All you got to do is go online. To use it is free. However, I do need to let you know this, whoever's listening. To use the directory is free. The fees that are attached to you using that particular advocate is independently based, and they have every right to independently base them. One is a job. I could be on a call with a patient and with a provider, and it'll take me 2 to 3 hours to complete that one simple call, because the doctors very often are trying to get out of something, so they want to keep playing this game. That's time that's valuable to us. Two, a lot of us are experienced in the field. We're very, very well educated. We have experience. There's so much that goes into it. So yes, we do expect to get paid, but how much we ask you for, that depends on the independent advocate. They are an entrepreneur. this is their business. They have every right to run a business. If you feel like, hey, they charge you too much, do a couple of things. Either one, find a support group that can help you with some of this stuff, or two, continue looking for an advocate until you find an advocate that fits your pocket. But please, whatever you do,
Or ask them if they'll work with you. I mean,
right, see what they'll work with you, see what, and a lot of times there are resources that actually will help you to pay for an advocate. There are resources available that will help you to pay for an advocate. You just have to know that they have every right to get paid every dime that they ask for. And if it's out of your budget, then move on, find someone else. But don't make them feel as though you should be doing this for free, because it's a job just like every other job. And should they be getting paid for their services? Well, they most certainly should be getting paid. So that's it. And so what I thought he was going to do was come on and talk about GNA, talk about the advocates, and talk about the patients and how they can hook up. And what he told me, he got back to me and said, Sandra, okay, I'm ready. Can I talk about sleep apnea? My heart leapt, because that means that he was feeling comfortable with what's going on in his life, to share that with the world, to share that with people, to tell people, hey, sleep apnea is not the death sentence that you might think it is, and we're out here to help you. So I'm so very grateful that he was like, well, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about GNA a little, but it's more important that I get the message out about sleep apnea. I am so very proud of you, Brad, for bringing you to this tonight, to this to this recording, so that you can get the message out there that, look, guys, yeah, I wasn't going, I've gotten doctors and I wasn't saying anything. I was human. I just really didn't do it. I don't care who I am. I just didn't say anything. It took my wife to tell the doctor he's snoring a lot. Can you take a look at it, for him to for him to actually get the help he is. So I'm glad that you acknowledge, look, Sandra, I'm human. I'm human. There's some shortnesses here when it comes to the doctor. Even though you have a doctor that loves you and that you love, you still was like, yeah, I ain't gonna really say nothing. I'm just gonna let it go. And your wife was like, this is it, and stop that foolishness. So I'm very, very grateful that you did come on and that you did actually address it. I am gonna, before I close out, I'm still looking to see, and I'm not seeing any more comments, but I am going to actually ask you to do me a very, very big favor. And if you can close us out with three, and it could be from anywhere. I mean, it could be the advocates, it could be the sleep apnea, it could be anything. I'm going to the ball game tomorrow. It could be anything, right? That you can leave men with feeling and knowing that you as a man are encouraging them to do or to be. Could you give us three things, please, before we...
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Rolling Stones. They're in town, as you may or may not know. They're on tour. Jagger is 80. And if you take a look at that guy, he's one of my heroes. He's my idol. And I look at him as an inspiration to see what paying attention to your body and, staying in good shape can do for longevity and for, just overall happiness and being able to do what you love to do for your whole life. And in this case, playing rock and roll in the greatest rock and roll band of all time. So that's number one. The other, I don't even remember what the question was, Sandra. So
the question was for you to give us three tips on, or encouragement to guys, whether it be GNA. You gave us one, which is Rolling Stones, and which is self-care, not just for women, but self-care for men. It's just important.
Yeah, find an inspiration out there, something that you wish to aspire to. I have heroes, and my heroes, I like to emulate them a little bit if I could. So, God bless Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. And the second thing that I would tell anybody is trust your body, trust your instincts. You're the only one that knows. So Um, you know, go back to my situation back in 2004 when I went to the hospital. You mentioned 37-year-old, otherwise healthy. Throw him in the corner. Don't worry about it. He'll be fine. No. Um, Patients need to be able to convey that they don't want to be in an emergency room, especially on a holiday, and they don't make a habit of doing it. And you need to be able to convey to the medical team that something made me come here, and that's because something is not right. And my third would be directed toward the clinicians who are working in hospitals, for example. You know, surgeons and the staff that they take time out before they're supposed to, taking a time out, get everybody on the same page before they perform an operation. What leg are we operating on here? Check. Anesthesia, what are you? Check. Any allergies? Check. We got the right patient? Check. Okay, let's go. Well, that's getting the mindset ready to perform a task. And I just think that clinicians should make it a habit of, before they walk into the room to see the patient for the first time, whoever it is. So many times you see them, they're looking at the chart, or it used to be the chart, on the door. You take the chart, they're looking at the chart as they're walking in the door. Now they're glancing at a computer screen. If it's an emergency situation, that doctor needs to say to themselves, this person probably didn't want to come to the hospital. So I need to treat them as though they know that something is significantly wrong with them, that either brought them here or caused a friend or a relative or a loved one to bring them there. Because people don't go to hospitals because they think it's a good time. They go there when something is seriously wrong, and it's usually the last choice, but it is also the most important. So it's important for patients to be able to convey that, hey, I'm not here for the fun of it. And it's important for the clinicians to take that time out and that deep breath and say, you know what, this patient doesn't want to be here. Let's find out what's really going on with them. So that's it.
And I so thank you for that. And Carol, before we go, Carolyn Coleman is saying Mick Jagger is a great example of self-care. I mean, you live to be 80, you live to be 90. I mean, you're still out here rocking and rolling. You're still out here at your top level. That's because you're taking care of your body, and that's because you're taking care of yourself. And so that's important. And when you see examples like that, you need to actually take and say, you know what? Well, if they could do it, I could do it too.
Well,
And so
exactly. But not only that, my motto is, as long as he's going to keep touring, who am I to not go see him perform?
right.
It's like embarrassing that this 80-year-old guy is up there with his mates, and they're going to be rocking for 2.5 hours. I feel like it would be like I would be just doing a complete disservice uh, to myself if I didn't support that. So I'll be going to the Stones for a couple of nights.
Well, and you should. I mean, it's called self-care. And finally, it's called self-care, but most importantly, it's called you taking care of yourself and taking the time to pour into you. As much as you pour into others, if your jar, your bottle, your cup is empty, right? How you gonna give to somebody else? And
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, what you giving to them? Like, if you're empty, what are you really giving to them, right? You're giving them air. I mean, really, 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 we don't need air. And so, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out for this evening. Once again, thank you for taking the time to hang in there with us during our snooze or lose. Remember, if you are not sleeping, you're losing valuable, valuable time from your life. So please do what you need to do to get encouraged and be encouraged and stay encouraged. And as Miss Carolyn Coleman states, rock on. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and close out this event. Thank you.